Welcome everyone to Geology Club August meeting. We have a great meeting tonight. We have a legend in the house with us, Mr. Calcite, Johan Maertens. I am so glad to have him here. So we're going to run through the meeting side of this really quickly tonight. We do have some announcements, but we're going to run through things so we can get right to them. So bear with me. Oh, on behalf of the leaders, Tina Kruger, Joe McNamara, and myself, plus the team, Treasurer Sylvia Eppig, Field Trips Vanessa Burnett, website Michelle Bodery. That is a new name for you all. We are announcing two new names tonight. Michelle Bodery has joined us, and she's already been taking care of the website for a while now. Plus, editor social, Joanna Colvin Gamble. She's amazing part of this team, and she is going to be backed up now by Nikki Barnett on the social side of things. We have had a lot of social stuff going on, so we want to make sure we have plenty of people keeping their eye on it, because my eyes have been dealing with everything else. So, of course, Strata Archivist Michael Fowler and promotional Samantha Voschel. This is an amazing team we have here, and without every single one of these team members, we could not be doing what we're doing. So thank you to all the members, and thank you to our team members. All right, we brought this to you last meeting, the new Northeast Rock and Mineral ID app. I don't know if you've tried it out. I don't know who's tried it or what, but go to our website. It's scroll down on the main page, and you'll click on the logo where it says new app, take you right to it. You can basically walk through like a real scientist or a professional geologist actually doing the tests to identify stuff here in the Northeast. Now, going outside of the Northeast minerals, you may run into some issues. However, right here in the Northeast should cover you with whatever we got and give you some locations of, potentially where it came from, if it just happens to be in a collection somewhere. So wanted to make sure everyone knew about that. It's a great new app. We've got more on the way. Our big picnic this Saturday. If you haven't signed up, I put it in the email about this, the link for the meeting tonight. If you haven't signed up, come on out. This is going to be an amazing event, and we've still got plenty of room for cars. Dillsburg Dinosaurs and Gold. We are going to have Dr. Jen Patea and her husband there doing the dinosaur side of things. Now, we know PA didn't have official dinosaurs, but we got tracks, we got all kinds of relative species and stuff. They're going to be talking about all that. Me on my side, I'm going to be doing a presentation on gold panning, showing you how to gold pan. I'll also have my treasure hunters there. So we'll have an active professional treasure hunter metal detecting the whole property, trying to pull something out for all of us to see. And then you'll be able to try it for yourself. So we're going to also have a crystal mine, mini mine, where kids can dig out quartz crystals. We're going to have historical stuff. There's actually fossils, Scolithus tube fossils in the stream. The property is actually on the border of some very old material going back 500, 400, 450, 500 million years, and the Triassic Fanglomerate diabase area, the rift that came up, but it's right on the Triassic Fanglomerate. But so it's this just like a conglomerate, but they call it a fanglomerate. It's red and white quartz groupings. We have a really nice big slab of it that I pulled out of the stream last year when I was there. So you'll be able to check that out and see a big piece of history, which is really great. So come on out, free food. I mean, we're providing hot dogs, hamburgers. We'd like you to bring a dish if you do show up, kind of potluck thing. But it's going to be a great day all around. We're going to have lots of dino stuff and kids, stuff for the kids. Oh, it's not just trilobite decorating. We're going to have raptor claw decorating. We're going to have paint some rocks. We're going to have some very cool crafty kind of stuff as well as all the other activities. So come on out. It's going to be amazing. Here is a little bit look at the property. Check this out. There's the stream. And thanks to Deanna and Mark Weaver. This is their property, and they have invited the club, and they are excited to have us. You'll also notice over here on the left-hand side of the screen, Vanessa Burnett has been hard at work. Her 3D printer has been hard at work, and there are going to be very cool things that she is in store for us, surprise-wise. I heard one thing took 17 hours to print. That's going to be cool. So this is going to be amazing. Come on out Saturday. Sign up at the link that was with this Zoom link email that you just got tonight or today. All right, trips. So, like I said, Dinosaurs and Gold Club Picnic this weekend. Sunday is Lower Providence Gun Club. I believe there was one available spot. I'm not sure if that's been taken, but that went out on the members only page earlier. But other than that, that is closed. 822 Nethers Farm, Hopewell, Ohio. That's going to be really cool. Samantha is here tonight. Samantha, did you want to say anything about that trip? You're the trip leader, so what you got on that one?
With that one, it's from 11 to 6, but you can leave as early as you want. I just gave enough time for everybody because that's how long they're open. So the only thing that the lottery does not cover for the first 10 people who get in is your $1 per pound on the flint. That's what they're asking for us to dig out there. So everybody has to pay their $1 per pound. Unfortunately, we can't cover that cost.
Cool. Well, I mean, that's very similar to, the places in New Jersey for the fluorescents, you're paying by the pound too. So, yeah. No, very, very usual. Thank you, Samantha. And Samantha's going to be bringing out some brand new club T-shirts to the picnic this weekend, so we'll have a fresh stock of things. So pick them up while they're hot, on trips and all that. So, 823 Pickering Golf Course, Phoenixville, PA. We this is a place you can go, but we like to go and assemble as a family. The one part of this club is we're trying to build a family because we all like each other and we all want to have fun together. So come on out. I believe there is a limit to that trip because parking. So sign ups, check out the emails that we've sent out. Area 52. Everyone is excited about Area 52. Let me check my messages. We've still been discussing about this tonight. Okay, so as of Vanessa, you there? Are you good with this? We just
yeah. We also have New Ringgold on the 30th.
Well, no. So hold on. Back to Area 52.
Okay.
What we had discussed on chat. We good to announce that?
Yes. Yep.
All right. So Area 52 is now open to all members. So we had the restriction in there that we wanted to have first come, first serve for those that didn't get to go in on Memorial Day earlier this year. We've seen the people come in and no one's been registering since. So as of tonight, go ahead and register. We're announcing that to everyone. We need to get, we have a limit of 60 on that trip. We're not anywhere near that, so we want to make sure we get to as close as that as possible. The happier we can make Shane now is the better we can do it. The more happier he'll be in the future. So let's fill this trip, and it's going to be a great time up there. Let's just keep our fingers crossed it doesn't rain again. 913 Hewitt Gem Mine back up in Connecticut. 920 Lower Providence Gun Club again. High Street Flanker Night Company. So the private property out in Franklin, New Jersey. That is $30 a person. I believe you can take out whatever you want after that. I don't remember. I don't think there was any restrictions on per pound, but it is $30 per person to attend that trip. On top of that, that will be an evening trip. So you start in the daytime, the evening, so you can see what you're doing, and then you go into nighttime, so the UV lights will be much more effective, and you'll see a lot more stuff. That will end, I believe that trip ends 9 p.m., 9 or 10 p.m. I forget what we were just talking about. So, it'll be an evening collecting trip out there. 10-3, this is brand new. National Limestone, Central PA Rock and Mineral Club. This is a joint trip. If you remember back in the spring, we were the first club to get in there. We brought Central PA along because they're, kind of a friend club. So that, they would share with us when they got in the fall. So that way we could spread it out between both fall and spring for all of the members of both clubs. We love Central PA. So, thank you to them for, doing their half. So that'll be great. 10-3, National Limestone. 10-10 and 10-11, Mohawk Valley Mineral Mining. Once again, that's going to be an amazing trip. That discount, basically, if any member out there wants to get into Mohawk Valley at this point, using the club discount, we are working that out with Scott, the owner, that will be access for all members year-round. So you don't have to go necessarily on a trip, but you will have access to that discount code, which is $50 per day, $80 for every 2 days. And that code is technically AR50. I'm not sure if it's active fully on the website right now, but as long as you go to registration and show Scott an email from the club, you are good to go and you can get discount. It has to be an email to you from the club, and he'll give you the discount, so you're good to go. 10-18, the Martin Marietta Texas Quarry in Cockeysville, Maryland. That's a great trip. We already did that. Great leader. He gives us so much information. And it's just a beautiful quarry, just amazing to be 400 foot down in pure calcite, pretty much. Mr. Calcite is here tonight. He would love that trip. It's bright white and pure. I actually brought a bucket home of the slurry that was in just like one of the drainage ditches, and it's pure white, and I can mold it into, I've molded it into trilobites and raptor claws just because I have the molds, and it works. So it's a little powdery after that, but it does harden and stay that way. So that was fun. Great quarry. So that's our trip list going out so far for right now. We'll update that as we go along. Am I hearing somebody?
I'm sorry. We do have on August 30th. We have New Ringgold Fossil Pit.
Okay. Yes. Forgot about that one. Yeah. My apologies. We did talk about that. Yeah. New Ringgold. I believe Mike Faller might be leading that trip. If I'm not able to, because I'm not sure if I'll be in Maine myself. So.
Yeah. And then October 25th, we have Lehigh Anthracite again. We're not doing the coal mine tour this time, but Greg is going to take us to 2 or 3 different spots at the quarry.
Cool. And what was that date again? Sorry.
The 25th, October 25th.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. All right. So that's it for trips right now. We've got a lot going on, and it's been a crazy year. So hope you all are enjoying it. Moving on.
Before you go too much further, there were some questions about the picnic.
Oh, my apologies. I'm not
in the chat. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any of that.
Okay. So a couple were asking about bringing metal detectors, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay. And will there be electricity if somebody wants to bring some hot food?
Absolutely, and we'd love to have you do that. You can bring a crock pot or whatever. There is electricity in the pavilion.
I think that's all the questions I see.
Cool. All right. Well, hope we get some more signups. Thank you all. All right, Rock Hound of the Month, nominated by members monthly. So every month you all submit to us, email or message us, however you want to do it. You just basically tell us who you think should be Rock Hound of the Month. At the end of the month, we gather all those names. We vote on that as a leadership team, and whoever wins Rock Hound of the Month. So who was nominated this month? Well, we had a few people. But let's just show you.
Here we are again, Mohawk, Vinny, Dakota, Bill. While we're here, what's up, Vin? How are you this month?
I'm good. How
Good.
about you?
Congratulations,
Thank you.
especially on winning Rock Hounder of the Month this month.
Oh, for real?
For real.
Oh, damn, that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good job, bro.
Thank you.
You'll be getting a t-shirt eventually.
Man.
Bet. Say hi to everybody. Perfect.
All right. I love Vinny. I couldn't think of anyone more special or great to, receive this award. So I think, Vincent, you are on tonight. Why don't you unmute and say hi? Congratulations, sir. Maybe he can't. I don't know. But anyway, thank you, Vincent. Basically, on trips, he has been very helpful on things. He's also donated a lot of things to the giveaways. He's given away quite a lot of stuff through us. So he has been excelling on trips and pulling out. Look at this diamond he pulled out at Mohawk. He's been doing some stuff. So, and you're going to see a lot more of him. He's offered to help out with the youth program and stuff like that. So, congratulations, Vinny. You're the best. Thank you. All right. So, last thing tonight before we get started, giveaway. Got to do the giveaway. Choose a number. I'm about to run through everything we have, but choose a number between 1 and 575. Throw that number in the chat. No duplicate numbers. Second entered of the same number must choose again. So the first person who gets in the chat gets to keep that number. Second person who chooses it got to pick again. Number will be chosen by random.org, and the closest going over without, closest to the number without going over wins tonight's giveaway. And I'm going to stop sharing. All right. So this tonight is going to be a member submitted giveaway. So basically, we're going to focus on people that have been donating stuff to the club. This is a really nice big quartz PA crystal collected by Joanna Colvin Gamble. This is at a farmer's field, private location, but she's given a bunch to the club, and you all have already received a bunch of those. Tyler Billett. This is malachite and chalcopyrite. This isn't from the gun club. I'm not really sure where it's from, but it's a nice chunker. Also tonight, Epido crystals from Calumet, Michigan. I believe this is from, it just drew a blank. This is from the, I know you're on here tonight too, probably. All right, I'll have to get you back to y'all with who that is. The Klops. I think this is from the Klops. Yes, the Klop family. Yeah, it came up right as I remembered it. The Klop family. I could totally think of you. I just couldn't think of your name. Sorry about that. But yeah, so those are given, donated to the club. Of course, we have to feature Vanessa and her 3D printing. Look at that. Check this out. I'm going to be right back. 1 second. All right, make it a little darker in here. Check this out. It actually hits with a UV. Look at those things shine. So this is a rock holder, like kind of a rock stand kind of thing. It's very cool. Vanessa 3D printed that out. So you're going to get this as well from her. We have, of course, Geology Club sticker. Oh, that was upside down. There we go. PA quartz from Carbon County. We're going to have Herkimer Diamond from Area 51 or Area 52. Bag of things from Mohawk. There's a little pocket in this piece that has a little crystal in there, plus a free floater crystal in there. So yeah, a couple things from Mohawk. Oh, and the last thing, since Mr. Calcite is here, this is some UV reactive calcite. Man, it's hard to see on my laptop. But yeah, that's UV reactive from Mount Pleasant Mills. Uh, National Limestone. Sorry you can't really see that, but it's a beautiful piece in honor of Mr. Calcite being here tonight. So that's what you're going to win. You will get that shipped out in a box. And the winners of last month, July's meeting, no worries. You all are getting your boxes. They went out either yesterday or today. So if you're on here from last time, other than Jen Doral, she won the toolkit, and that's massive and huge. And I still need to talk to her about how we're going to get that to her because that's a lot of shipping. So everyone else's stuff went out, and that should be there in the next couple of days. So without further ado, let me give me 1 second here. All right, our presenter tonight, Johan Maertens, is a mineralogy citizen scientist. He collects minerals in near-home exposures and documents localities with an emphasis on crystal habits, especially calcite. Mr. Maertens is an active member in local and regional mineralogical associations and is a past president of PISA, right here in Pennsylvania, our good old Pennsylvania Earth Sciences Association. He has won awards from multiple federations of mineralogical and lapidary societies as editor and author for regional bulletins. Speaking for fellow rockhounds is his way of giving back and making more friends. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Calcite. Thank you for being here.
Good.
Welcome.
Wonderful. It's always great to be in good company out there, guys. Welcome, everyone. I invited a couple of friends as well. I see people from Michigan, from Ohio, from other places as well. So welcome to all. Hello to the people that I know. And for the people that don't know me, that's good for you. All right. Let me get into presentation because it may take a while. Good. There we go. So just one thing to ask, either put yourself entirely on mute, or if you leave your microphone on, silence any devices. And if you need to take a call or the dog is barking, take it outside the room. I am not checking the chat while I'm giving the talk. So maybe Andrew or somebody else, you can check out if there's something urgent that needs to be mentioned or questions. But I'll make sure to address any questions at the end of the presentation. That helps me focus going on. And then I will advise, I think there's one spot where I can ask you, where you can speak up when I'm done. I know this is being recorded and will be made publicly available. So I just want to say that, what I present here is copyrighted to myself, but also to the people that own some of the images and artwork that will be in this presentation as well. So I just want to make that clear. And then Andrew, you brought up a whole bunch of people, that make this Geology Club thriving, and I thank all of you for what you do as a past responsible person too. I know it's a big job. It's called volunteering. We do it from our heart, and thank you so much for doing all this for us. Your efforts really make this association really vibrant. So Andrew said, I go by the moniker of MR Calcite, but actually the MR stands for more calcite. Good. A little bit of my background, and you will see the perspective where I am coming from. I developed this little quiz, and I think during another meeting, maybe I can go over this quiz on what you're doing. But in short, this is kind of a questionnaire that leads to this graphic, and it can position where you are. I found that most of the people that are online here and most of the people around the world, and I'm talking about maybe 95%, they're here. They just love minerals, and they love beautiful minerals. I am more, in this type of quadrant. I look at things scientifically, and it's also a big passion for me with building, a scientific collection as well. Money or aesthetics do not matter a lot for me. So that's just the perspective that I take when I made this presentation. When people talk to you, and it may not be to your heart or not. Good. Tonight's presentation is a copy of what I presented this year in Tucson for the Friends of Mineralogy. And it doesn't go about calcite. Actually, it goes about Celestine from what I call the Greater Ohio region. Why is that? I moved to Ohio quite a few years ago by now, and realized that Celestine is really a mineral that makes and that is popular in Ohio. Actually, we currently have in the Ohio House, the State House, a proposal to make Celestine the state mineral of Ohio. And I'm doing this within the theme of 250 years of American independence. So with a focus on the color, red, white, and blue, with a focus on Celestine as well. And this presentation was made at the Friends of Mineralogy Symposium in Tucson. And it goes with stories from heaven and hell, and you will see why. What I plan to cover, just talk a little bit about the chemistry, strontium sulfate, which is the chemical name for the mineral Celestine. By the way, it's Celestine, not Celestite. I talk about geology and petrogenesis. Where are we talking about, and how did it get there? It wouldn't be me if I wouldn't be talking about morphology. And then what's the origin of color? I'll talk about that as well. And then obviously go over a couple of regional localities that make the Greater Ohio region. For the sake of brevity, I'm not going to go through the bonus unless you really want to. Now, how did this get started, right? One day, my friend Terry Heising, who's a world-renowned calcite collector, he volunteered me to make a presentation on, and I was going to say calcite. He says, no, calcite is my presentation. You're going to make a presentation on Ohio Celestine. And I remember after I got his call and he told me I had to make a presentation, I had a deadline, that I stormed down the stairs from my office, and I went to my wife and said, you're not going to believe this. Chief Calcite gives Soldier Calcite the instructions to give a lecture on Celestine. And my wife, the beauty she is, she smiled at me, and she says, I know calcite makes you happy, but Terry is a good friend of you, and he knows what you're doing. You accepted the assignment. You love what you do. Your presentation will be great, whatever the subject is. So all of you are going to be witness of how I did and how true my wife's words are on the trust and request that Terry bestowed on me. Now, again, making this presentation, it feels like hell to me. And if you look at the image, for me, this is calcite with Celestine, or from your perspective, it could be the other way around. A quick note also, most of the images will list the mineral that you can see there. It will list the locality, and it will list the size, and also the person who made the image, or the person who has the collection. So I won't bother you with the details. If you want to look it up, just look closely to the screen and you can see where this is coming from. This is from a quarry where during the 60s and the 70s, millions of calcites and celestines were collected when the owners were very open to collecting. But when it changed hands and ownership in the early 80s, they closed the doors for collectors. So anything you have from there by now is 40, 45 years old. But millions of pieces came out of it. And if anyone wants to buy a few from me, I certainly have a few to spare. Good. Celestine is, well, after this highway to hell rant, let us get on the stairway to heaven. Let me put it that way, right? So Celestine is the natural occurring chemical of anhydrous sulfate of strontium. It forms ionic bonds that are made by electrostatic attraction between the metal cation, strontium, and the polyatomic anion of the sulfate. And unfortunately, Celestine cleaves quite easily, and it will cleave according, to these weak bonds that you have between the strontium and the sulfate anions. So that's just a little chemistry for you guys who are inclined to do. Now, the material was known since antiquity, and Celestine by itself was not recognized as a distinct material until the element strontium was discovered in 1790. Interestingly enough, the material from Bellwood, Pennsylvania, out of all places, was analyzed in Germany. Remember, there's a lot of German heritage out there in Pennsylvania, but all the science was still in good old Europe. And it was there named Celestine by the mineralogist Adam Gottlieb. And the name that he gave, came from the Latin word celestis, which means of the heaven, celestial, and that was alluding to its sky blue, pale color that it had. Now, the name changed from the German Celestine to Celestine, and in the early 1900s, it was renamed to Celestite to align, with the usual "ite" extensions that we have for many minerals. And then the International Mineralogical Association, during a major change, changed the name again to the original Celestine, I think in the 70s or in the 80s. So that's just, what we're going to take. And I think that was a trade-off between barite with a Y versus barite with an I. There you got the British versus the Americans. We never give up. Now, Celestine chemically is isostructural with the sulfate salt of barium. So if you would look at the structure and you would substitute a strontium for the barium, you would get barite. In this case, sometimes minerals can substitute for each other, manganese for calcium and calcite, all type of stuff. Between barite and Celestine, that very rarely happens. There is nothing in the middle. There is no a mineral like baristine. If you find it, it's either all barite or it's all Celestine. But they could be both present, up to certain percentages in each of the minerals. Now, contrary to barite, Celestine has a much more restricted geological distribution than barite that has to, to make with its origin. And most of the places where you're going to find Celestine is where it is a product of strontium-bearing fluids that interact with gypsum and with anhydrite. Now, when you hear the words anhydrite and gypsum, you immediately think about old seas or basins that dried up and where the salts crystallize out of the water, and that's exactly what happens. So if you find Celestine, it typically points that there or around it, was a geological environment that concentrated the strontium, and it had to do with the evaporation of where it comes. And then Celestine occurs as crystals, often compact, massive, or as fibrous forms. Good. The Great Ohio region is actually a world classic collectible area. And in our region, we are very sedimental. So now where's the Midwest? Well, for the fun, apparently Ohio is in the Mideast, if you look at this chart. all fun apart, before we start digging to hell, what does hell look like? And where do heaven and hell touch? So Celestine occurs in the region that I'll be talking about, primarily in the Devonian and Silurian age dolomitic limestone, associated with the Findlay Arch. An arch is where the rock curves upward, and on the side it curves downward. And my talk about the Greater Ohio extends the Findlay Arch into Canada with the same type of rock, a little bit of Indiana as well, and then upstate New York as well, that I loosely added. You'll see, Pennsylvania, unfortunately, did not apply to the area that I'll be talking about. So that's going to be the area of localities that I will be covering during this presentation. So Celestine, like I said, it's a strontium sulfate. And interesting enough, strontium and sulfate by themselves are not very common ions in seawater. But when sections of oceans that are inland and are periodically connected and disconnected from major oceans by rising sea levels or changes in tectonic activity with sinking or rising geography, they will crystallize in dry periods, and then they will be covered by mud and dirt that makes shale or makes limestone. When the Appalachians were formed here, they weathered, and that weathering went into the basins. So here you have the Allegheny and Appalachian orogeny that you guys are very familiar with. And then there was a basin connected to the ocean in the Middle Devonian, and there were other basins. And then the Findlay Arch and the Algonquin Arch sat in the middle. So weathering from the west to the east and from the east to the west, ended up bringing these materials into the basin, and then they crystallized. We ended up with a pretty high ratio of strontium versus calcium, and that made for the Celestine. There was also biologic activity involved too, with sulfur reducing bacteria from sulfites, and in the end, that's how we ended up weathering pyrite and other materials to make sulfate. Activity in water, dolomitization created porous rock, and that allowed fluids, that came from the Appalachians to migrate from the basins, from the Michigan and Appalachian Basin to this area of the Findlay Arch. So you had a specific concentration of strontium here, and it wouldn't happen if there weren't these basins, and if there wasn't the Appalachians, that orogeny that was formed up there. The area was subject to a late slight uplift, but the area where I live, here in Ohio, is actually pretty boring. Everything is flat. The rock is flat, and not much has happened to it. So the crystals that were formed earlier, they've been there for a long time. Nothing happened to them. And it's thanks to glacial erosion from the ice ages that moved up and down this area, that we now have access to these Celestine crystals, because they scraped away a lot of rock that came on top of it. Spectacular crystals from the Bass Islands in Ohio, and later more about this, were very well known and were very much sought after by collectors and museums in the beginning of the century. And one of the first publications about that Ohio Celestine was actually published in another German magazine. Many large Celestines, are in museums worldwide. You go to the Smithsonian, you get an Ohio Celestine, you go to the Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh, you go to the Seaman Museum, you go to École des Mines in Paris, you will find Ohio Celestine in there. So it's absolutely well known. It was on the cover of magazines, and there was even one year a special exhibit about Findlay Arch Celestine from Ohio and Michigan in Tucson. So it is very well known by connoisseurs and very much sought after. Good. My favorite, of course, crystal morphology, but I won't go too deep in the weeds there because I know it's quite a hellish topic for most of you. Celestine by itself is orthorhombic with 3 twofold axes and 2 mirror planes. And natural Celestine occurs most often as thin to thick tabular crystals, occasionally to lath-like crystals. And the dipyramid, interesting enough, is less common. So most of the crystals that you will see are the ones highlighted in the sketch that you have up there. They're a combination of the pinacoid, a couple of pinacoids, a bunch of prisms, and then some elongation involved in there. Like I indicated, most of the Celestine crystals in our area are tabular. And in this case, what I'm showing here on the left, is what called the old-time blue. And that is what I consider the type Celestine for our area. It was quite common in Lime City Quarry in Wood County, Ohio. And they were very popular before the discovery of the marshmallow habit. These were found in, I would say, late 1960s into the 1970s as well. But these are your type Celestine crystals. The bipyramids are somewhat rare, and I'm also showing here a Michigan bipyramidal crystal. I talked to you about the marshmallows, and here's an image of that one. Even though they may look like 6-sided prisms, they're actually pseudo-hexagonal. There is no multiple twinning going on here like you would have with aragonite crystals. And these marshmallow crystals, that's the way the collectors call them, they came from giant cavernous pockets, and these hollows were in the quarries were large enough for an adult to stand up in there and collect in these caverns. And they were quite abundant during the time that they went through that layer in the late 60s, 70s, and even going into the early 90s, early 80s, and that's kind of when we lose track because most of the places we could no longer collect in there. And these caverns were filled, with these shapes of crystals, and people hauled away truckloads, literally, of them. They were usually much smaller than the big tabular Celestine crystals. They're cloudy, white cloudy, and some of them have a bluish type of interior. If you go out to buy them, you may very often see that people think that they're pseudomorphs of white strontianite. Yes, the stuff you find in National Limestone. Of a pseudomorph of strontianite after Celestine. And strontianite is strontium carbonate, so it keeps the strontium ion, but there is a replacement of the sulfate by the carbonate. There's not much to it. If you take a cross-section of this one, it's all Celestine, inside out. It just related to the color, and more about that later. To confuse things, there are strontianite pseudomorphs that are found with a similar shape. So buyer beware. Oh, I just said buyer beware, right? Well, the devil or the dealer from hell, pick your poison, tries to trick us. And if you look at these Celestine crystals, you may think they're all Celestine, but looking will do you not good. If you would pick them up immediately, you would realize that they're way heavier than Celestine. And that's because these are all barytes. Remember that barite was isostructural with Celestine. So they may look identical, and I would say the best way to distinguish them is that these crystals are usually way heavier than Celestine. Barium by itself is about 50%, just the atom barium, not the barium sulfate, is about 50% heavier by weight than strontium. So be careful when you see a crystal. You won't be able to tell from an image if it's Celestine or if it's barite. Okay, that was, during my initial presentation, the focus of my presentation. Stories from heaven and hell, and we talk about a color. Red, white, and blue. 250 years of U.S. independence, and I'm going to go a little in the weeds about the origin of the color, and I'll talk about trace elements, a little bit about crystal lattice defects, or specific items that happened during the formation of the crystal growth. Okay. Sorry, something just popped up on my screen. I had to take it away. Pure Celestine is actually entirely colorless, and it's also an insulator. For the people that have studied chemistry or physics, it has a white band gap in the oxygen on the 2p area and in the strontium on the 5s and 4d. And that makes that the light in the visible spectrum does not have enough energy to kick some electrons in the structure to higher level, and by there being absorbed. So actually no light is being absorbed here, and that's why pure Celestine should be colorless. So what does that mean? The origin of the color in Celestine has been long debated, and in my opinion it's still not entirely settled. True colorless Celestine is rare in common, and it's very rare in the region that I'm going to be talking about. So if the mineral by itself is not colorful by itself, then the origin of the color, must be extrinsic. There must be other reasons outside of the mineral Celestine by itself to have it colored. Now, if you find true colorless Celestine, they're usually very small, as you can see in some of these images. And my takeaway is almost that they're so small that you cannot see the blue color that happens in there. But you can find them if you're a micromounter. And some people even were able to facet some gems out of Ohio Celestine. What I'm showing here is about 4.4 carats. Very small. So like I said, right, the Celestine by itself, has no color. It's entirely colorless. So the color must be from the outside. It's what the scientists call allochromatic. And they're either by structural imperfections or from inclusions or even substitutions. Substitutions, will make a white color, and the structural imperfections will give us the blue color. And then some other inclusions will give us the red color. The Celestine on the left from Canada, the red color in there is caused by copper substituting for strontium in the order of about 50 ppm, parts per million. The copper ions are much smaller than the strontium ions in there, and they will distort the lattice. And now the lattice will be able to take the light, the daylight, will absorb most colors, and the only thing that does not get absorbed is a low energy color, the red and that makes the mineral appear red because all the higher energies are being absorbed. But I'm not going in the weeds about the Jan Teller effect on the distortion here. You may find on the market crystals like the ones on the right. These are Celestines with some hematite staining. If you would break off a tip, you would just see that the staining is on the outside, not all the way through the mineral. But okay, it's red, right? If you find and if you have white Celestine, then the cause of the white is more a physical effect. The opacity comes from microscopic inclusions, some fluids or some solids that happen during very rapid growth. They might be from microfractures where the light is caught in the fractures and reflecting. Or it could also be that you're not looking at one crystal, but that it's a lot of small crystals. So it's polycrystalline, and the light finds its way all the way through the crystals, and because they're so small, it appears as opaque to white. And then sometimes, like we saw with the marshmallow Celestines, it could also be a slight alteration of the crystals as well if you're looking into a change in the grain boundaries. So white Celestine is most common with very rapid growth, with small crystals and a lot of crystals that grew together, a very high nucleation type of activity. You may collect, well, nowadays it's more like buy white-looking Celestine crystals. And in this case, we are talking about a little bit of pseudomorphing, where in dolostone cavities, the existing Celestine got partially converted to strontianite on the outside. And the strontium appears in very small fibers, and they create the white looks that you see here. And you may recognize the similarities with the marshmallows that I showed earlier. So these are partial pseudomorphs with strontium on the outside. And yes, it does fluoresce under UV radiation. So here we have Celestine slightly dissolved and then reprecipitated in a calcitic dolostone environment as strontianite. All right, we have red, we had white. Let's move over and let's transition to the blue. Depending on the crystal, there might be bluish reflections, certainly with most tabular type of crystals, because you have a whole bunch of flat, thin crystals that are parallel to each other. And these tabular or fine fibrous aggregates may create some kind of iridescence, and that becomes available as a blue color that we see. Or you may have in one crystal a transition from blue to white. So here you have a blend of color causes in one crystal. You go from color centers, and then you go to increased scattering during quick second generation growth at the tips of the crystal here, where the mineral is less ordered than what is at the core, which is blue. So our heavenly blue color involves some ionizing radiation with an impact on the sulfate. Remember, it's strontium sulfate. So in our mineral, we can have inclusions of potassium that is radioactive, potassium 40, and it can create defects in the crystal lattice from that trace potassium. And the radioactivity will create defects in your sulfate and create sulfite, sulfurous, or even radical oxygen. And it may also trap some electrons, that can't get out. You can imagine if all of that is happening in your crystal with the radioactivity and all the damage, that if the light falls on there, that there is certainly a way to absorb. What's happening here is the opposite from our red Celestine. Most of the colors get absorbed, but the blue is too high in energy to get trapped and is able to get out. And that's why we see the crystals as being blue in there. By the way, potassium is in bananas and is also in potatoes. Now, should you be afraid and no longer eat bananas because they contain radioactive potassium? Well, you would have to eat 1 million of these bananas, to have any effect. And if you have a colorless Celestine and you want to make it blue, you would have to put 1 million potatoes or 1 million bananas around it to create the blue color. It's obviously not going to happen, right? So this is very low radioactivity over a very long time. There was a theory about people who said that the blue color was caused by sunlight and by ultraviolet light that would make it blue. But when we find these crystals, they're in rock, they've been shielded from sunlight or any light for millions of years. And what actually happens is, and many collectors have learned, unfortunately, that when you collect these crystals, you take them out of the pocket and you lay them out on your newspaper or whatever you have in the quarry, that after an hour or so, that your crystals turn from blue to colorless. So that rejects my theory. Actually, radiation from the sun, UV radiation, will make the crystal colorless because we will be able to kick that electron that was trapped by radioactive activity with high UV impact out of that hole, and it would make the color disappear. So that's exactly what happens. Radiating this material with UV will make it colorless, opposite to what is done with many gemstones, where you can use high radioactivity or UV to have it change color. Okay, I think enough theory. Let's leave the weeds and let's enter in the flow garden. Let's go to heaven, and I'm going to show you some of the Greater Ohio Celestine localities that we have known. A lot of this goes back to the 60s up to about the middle 80s, when the quarries were very open for club-sponsored field trips, and many people collected large amounts of crystals, calcite, celestine, fluoride there. Unfortunately, later, most of the quarries turned away collectors, and what you have nowadays as celestine are absolute old-timers. Here's my late friend, Johan Maertens, in one of these cavities, picking out celestine crystals. He has a flat out there, and some of these crystals are 6, 7, 8 inches long. I think today MSHA or any safety person would go kabunkers about people crawling into these caves. But these were the good old days. Let me put them that way. So here we're back to the old-time blue that Andrew put on the poster for today's lecture. This is a crystal in the Harvard collection, and it is an absolute classic Greater Ohio or Ohio tabular celestine. And many collectors, were able to find these groups of crystals, that could get fairly large. Sorry, I had another pop-up here. These crystals were blue in the center, white on the rim, and gray in the corner. So here we have, 3 different formations of when these crystals were growing, being reflected in the colors that we see here. knowing that where these crystals were collected, at that time they were not too far from the surface. Most of the quarries nowadays are way deeper, 100 feet deeper below the areas where these crystals appeared. So it's extremely uncommon nowadays to find any newfound crystals of this type. And that makes them so pricey and so valuable. And if you would like to get a type of crystal, you certainly need to go for these and not the other ones that are more common on the market. Here are more varieties of crystals from Lime City Quarry. On the left, you can see colorless with blue cores. And then these crystals from White Rock Quarry in Clay Center are very common as well. There were days when collectors would go in with pickup trucks and make 4 rounds on Saturday and Sunday to clean out a cavity because they were filled by these types of crystals. And what makes them extra beautiful of these colorless to opaque white sprays of Celestine is their association, either with fluorite like the ones you see on the left, or with calcite crystals. And together they make incredible combo pieces. They are still occasionally found. There are 3 people that can go in the quarry. I was there on Saturday and they wouldn't let me in. I could only see it from the top. And I know 2 out of the 3 people, and they still market these crystals. But they've said that the harvest in the last 10 years has been pretty meager because they're quarrying way too deep. They have to wait until the quarry expands to blast again through that upper layer. But these are quite common to get. But I personally, unless they're associated, with the fluorite or the calcite, I don't find them very attractive. Here's some more Celestine, and even Clay Center, at a certain period produced what could go for the old classic old-time blue Celestines. They're less common, but I would say they're equally beautiful. Here is, I would say, one of my favorite images in my whole presentation here, a calcite with Celestine from Pew Quarry. And then a couple of marshmallow Celestine quarries from Lime City. We go a little north of Ohio and go to Michigan. The Findlay Arch extends into southeast Michigan. Actually, I was there on Saturday and I collected a few Celestines, not of the nature of what's shown here, but you can still find them. And the bedrock that is exposed there contains similar geology and similar Celestine crystals. These are images that I took in the Cranbrook Institute of Science in Bloomfield Hills near Detroit. We go out there to a quarry south of Detroit, and then on Friday I drive up there and I visit the museum and was able to take a couple of pictures from local crystals out there. Again, these were found 30 years ago. Couple more crystals of Celestine, tabular Celestine from Michigan. And we leave Michigan with another example, of old-time blue, typical Celestine crystals. I took the freedom to go a little bit into Indiana, even though it is a little bit of a stretch to say that it belongs to the same geology, but the influence of the Findlay Arch, where you find these Celestines, is kind of minimal. But the rocks have been dolomitized. There have been fluid circulations, possibly from the Michigan basin and the Illinois basin. So the process is somewhat similar. And you're going to find similar type of Celestines. Most of them are way smaller and somewhat different than the typical shapes that we see in Ohio and in Michigan. Interestingly enough, the one on the right has 3 colors in one, red, white, and blue. If that's not epitaph of this lecture, then I don't know what it is. Now, by the way, Celestine is an unincorporated community in Hull Township in Indiana. And there was never any Celestine found in that place. You know, how they came up with that name, it beats me. But I thought it was a fun fact when I saw the water tower out there, and and I went looking around, and the geology is totally wrong. Okay, let's hop over to the other side of Ohio and continue our Findlay and Algonquin Arch into New York. And yes, sure enough, you know, you can find Celestine crystals. Some of you may have collected them at Penfield or at Walworth during the open days. I certainly miss them going out collecting there. Most of you may have loved the fluorite, but there was, you know, white to blue Celestine to be found there as well. And that's just because the geology and the bedrock is identical to what's going on there in southeast Michigan and Ohio. If we hop, you know, just across the border, Lake Erie, similar, you know, the Algonquin Arch is the same geology, you just get Lake Erie that's overlaying some of that. But you can find similar type of Celestine. Remember our red Celestine from the Glen William quarries out there with the copper? Not very easily collectible type of crystals. Most of the time the vugs are entirely filled, and you don't get any nice freestanding Celestine. But you get red Celestine, which is, you know, from worldwide perspective, very rare. But there are other examples out there, and the Dundas quarries, which was, you know, one of my favorite for calcites and fluorites, they were also prolific producers of Celestine crystals. All right, you can unmute yourself now. There's a little pop quiz. Of course, I didn't tell you, right? But if you paid attention, you should be able to answer this question. You know, what is the top Celestine locality in Greater Ohio? Anyone take a stab at it? Anyone who paid attention?
Wow, nobody. All right.
Yeah, nobody. Hey, did everybody fall asleep? Hey, wake up.
I
Lime
doubt
City.
I heard Lime City.
that. Yeah, I think so.
Good. Well, I give you a little hint. You know, are you ready to visit a place where heaven meets hell?
Is it the
Come on,
Pew
Greg.
Quarry?
Good.
Is it
Yeah.
the Pew Quarry?
Good. Yeah, I heard Pew Quarry. Greg, you want to give the answer? I know there are two or three people that have seen this presentation before they know. All right, I won't leave you in much more suspense, but it's Crystal Cave in Put-in-Bay, Ohio. Remember that in the beginning I talked about giant crystals that were in museum collections all over the world from the Bass Islands. Well, where did they come from? They came from Crystal Cave, and I've been there. I think the first year that I moved to Ohio, I had to be there because it's an enormous cave, you know, filled with giant Celestine crystals. And you can see, you can just see an image of my hand here for reference. That was discovered in the 1800s by German heritage settlers out there. And while drilling for a water well, their drill got stuck and all of a sudden went through nothing. And they tried to figure out what was going on, and they discovered this cave. You know, they sent some of the material that they didn't know what it was to a German soldier who took it to Germany, and it was analyzed in Germany. Now, why did the Germans were they so interested in the Celestine? In the 1800s, Celestine was used for sugar refining, It was a material that allowed the refining of the sugar, and at the end of the process was able to being recycled. But of course, there was always a little loss. So the Germans were always looking for Celestine for their sugar refining, and about 150 tons of Celestine were dug out of this quarry, which made that now you can walk in this cave and you can look around and marvel at these incredible large Celestine crystals. In my opinion, I haven't seen any bigger Celestine crystals from any images from anywhere else in the world. And it's something every tourist can go and visit. You can sample some wine, which I did. You can get a tour by the bartender, which I do not advise. And you can marvel at these crystals. In my opinion, this is Ohio and the greater Ohio's region pride of where these heavenly crystals can be found in earthly hell in Pudding Bay, Ohio. Absolutely a recommendation to go there. And with that, I end my presentation, obviously with a lot of credits to the people that provided images for us, and a thank to the quarry management and the quarry staff that allowed us to go collect there, and also for the places that still allow us to do collecting. And then also my thanks go out to my wife, for her patience while I developed this presentation, and while I was away for another 2 weeks in Tucson to enjoy my mistress, minerals. So thank you all very much. And with that, for me, it's time to go and have a beverage, have a Midwest goodbye.
Well, thank you, sir. That was amazing. I learned personally a lot because I other than seeing them occasionally come out at Mount Pleasant Mills, from people breaking boulders open, I really haven't done much research. I really didn't know much about it myself. So, very cool to hear the process of how that was formed, how it forms and all that, and its association with dolostone and dolomitic processes and all that. So very cool. It all ties together, with New York, because we all know dolostone's where the Herkimers are. So very cool, something to think about. So thank you, sir. Very amazing. All right. So everybody,
I'm gonna quickly. Did you go for the chat, Andrew? Was there anything?
Yeah, I didn't see anything other than Rich Casey and a couple people were looking to reach out to see what you got for sale.
Yes, I do. I do. I have some material available for people at it's Geology Club, very economical prices.
How can they get a hold of you to reach out to you?
I'm going to put my email address in the chat, and that way people can reach out to me. Good.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Can you comment on the Celestine found in Meckley, PA, the closed down Meckley's quarry?
Oh, yeah. I remember collecting there during the open houses in 2000, 2001, some of the blue Celestine there too. I think chemically, and it's a good point you bring it up. I mean, there was some gorgeous Celestine. I have some totally colorless bipyramidal Celestine from there, and then I have the stubby tabular blue Celestine from there as well. So the chemistry and the geology is a little bit related, but the Appalachian Formation there makes it a separate area from what I'm considering for the greater Ohio with the Finley Arch and the appearance of the Celestine out there. But it's similar, right? You're sitting there right in the neck of the Appalachian orogeny that during the orogeny created some heat, weathering, and a slope for fluids to circulate. But I did not consider the Meckley Celestine, which is somewhat similar in form, as being part of the Greater Ohio area. Very good feedback, June. Thank you.
Yeah, Renee, road trip. Yeah, we got to go from Crystal Cave, PA to Crystal Cave, Ohio. Check them both back. But that's pretty pretty funny that we both have one. But yeah, Ohio's sounds much better. I'd like to go do that myself. So there is Johan's email now in the chat. So everyone write that down if you want to get a hold of him. So let's give away some rocks. We have and a rock stand here. Hold on one second. Got to get my windows all good. There we go. Here we go. All right, so everyone's got the number in there. Sylvia, I'm assuming that you kept track of things. Everyone seeing random.org. All right, so we have the random number random number generator from 1 to 575. I am going to hit generate in 3, 2, 1. The winner is number 61. Stopping share. So who is the closest?
Okay, 61 without going over. Nikki.
All right, so we have a little issue here. Nikki Barnett was just announced as a team member tonight.
Yes.
And we don't allow team members to win what is the, I'm sorry, Nikki, I didn't explain that one to you. And I even responded to you what the range was. I wasn't thinking. So I apologize, Nikki. Sorry about that. Who is, yeah, sorry, Nikki. I see your comment now. Yeah, congratulations. You're now a team member.
And you don't get anything.
All right, so who's the next one?
Bill Geary.
Bill Geary.
His luck, I tell you.
You've won a couple of these now, Bill. Wow. All right.
Okay.
Cool. Well, yeah. Bill, I'll get that to you. That's pretty funny. All right. Well, thank you all. On behalf of everyone here at Geology Club, does anyone have anything they'd like to just say? Anyone have anything exciting? Joanna?
I would like to add some things in before we wrap up tonight.
Sure.
I also want to remind everyone that we're always looking for fresh member content. If you have interesting find, a recent collecting trip, favorite specimen, geology-related photos, a story, educational information like Johan just presented to us, or even just an idea for something that you would like to see featured, please send it our way. We want to include it with more contributions from our members in the bulletin and on our social media pages. You don't have to be a professional writer. You don't have to be a professional photographer. Do your best. You know, we all bring the same thing to the table. We all bring our real selves. If you have something interesting to share, we can even help you put it together. It's your club too. And we want our content to reflect the people that make this community what it is. All of you, all of us. We're a big family. And on that note, I want to sincerely thank everybody. This club is so much more than meetings. It's field trips, it's rocks, minerals, fossils, and collecting. Over time, so many of you have become people that we generally consider part of our personal extended families. We love you. We appreciate the time you give, the knowledge that you share, and the friendships that we have all built together. The support you give to one another, we see it out in the field. Other people see it out in the field and they talk about it. Some people have said, you know, we were nearby, we heard you guys talking, we want to join the club. That all matters. Everything we do, it matters out there. And every member contributes something different. And that's exactly what makes us all so special. So thank you for continuing to show up participate, learn, share, laugh with us, support one another, and help make the Geology Club like a place where everybody truly belongs. We are all incredibly grateful for every single one of you, and we look forward to continuing to grow, to learn, to explore, and to make all these amazing memories together. That's it.
Well, that was amazing. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you.
Wow, I would have had you go first if you would have told me you had all that.
It just comes out of my head at random sometimes, you know. Like I sit here with my notebook and I scribble constantly. I have a notebook in every person, every vehicle.
You can still
the
use
point
some
of
of
an
my
editor.
articles. You can
Pardon
still
me?
use some of my contributions if you want for
Oh,
the
we
newsletter,
we
right?
plan on it. Thank you. I mean, your
Okay.
generosity is over the top. We love it. And I may be messaging you for more clarification just for myself with my non-scientific brain.
That makes two of us.
Great.
All right. Did anyone here tonight have anything you wanted to say? Anything special you found out there in the field or anything? All right. Well, if no one has anything, on behalf of Geology Club, all the team leaders, we greatly thank you. Like Joanna just said, and we are bringing more and more for you as we can. We're going to have a great meeting next month because we just saw in the chat that Bill is going to do a presentation on how to win these giveaways. So that's our meeting next month. Is Bill talking about that? So. All right, everybody. With that, I hope to see you all at the picnic and all these trips that we have coming. And thank you all. See you next month.